right, what's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the What Now Show. We've just had a crazy incident on set. We've made a bunch of mix-ups, but we're ready now. I'm joined by the Vanilla Gorilla, the only one and the best one of them all, Jason Witt. He's joining us. He has a fight coming up this Sunday. This Sunday morning at the UFC Apex against Matthew Semmelsberger. He's going to be fighting real soon. Jason, fuck me. Thank you so much for joining us. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Just chilling in the fighters hotel,
Right.
just hanging out.
Right.
Weight cuts.
I'm so glad you're far away from me right now because I would have gotten knocked the hell out in my eye. I think. I'm sorry, mate. All right. So let's start. I think the best place to start is with your fight coming up against Matthew. So of course Matthew's also quite a decorated fighter right now. He's 7-2 in his record. I mean, what do you make of Matthew as an opponent? What do you see coming into this fight?
Yeah, Matthews. I mean, not super experienced, not quite the veteran I am. Big guy, probably an athletic guy. Played college football, whatever. Good striker, but kind of that basic 1, 2, 3. Not a lot of flashy stuff going on. Yeah, I think I match up really well with him. I think that using a lot of my I'm really good at blending wrestling and striking together, and so blending those together into takedowns I think will really pay off for me in the fight.
Right, which is also something I really wanted to talk about. Right, you're very flamboyant with where you take the fight during. Well, if we look back at multiple different one of your fights, you've been very active when it comes to your jiu-jitsu. You've also had many multiple victories via knockouts. So you're very decorated when it comes to your the different elements of your game. Right now, when you're trying to draw a conclusion on what kind of a fighter you are, or do you see yourself as more of a pressure fighter? Do you like taking it to the ground very quickly, or do you prefer the stand up? If you were to, cement your fighting style in one phrase, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. I really try not to focus on one or the other. I really try to just put it all together in the cage. I enjoy both. I enjoy it. Like you said, I've had a couple of knockouts. I've had quite a few submissions. It really just wherever the fight goes, wherever I feel comfortable. It also depends on the opponent. You know what I mean? Cole Williams missed weight. We knew that taking him down and kind of wearing him down would pay dividends in the fight. And so I mean, if I want to strike with Cole Williams, I could beat him. If I want to strike with Matthew Simonsberg, I can beat him that way. If I want to take him down, it really depends on what the fight gives me and where I'm gonna take that.
Right. And when you're approaching Matthew, I'm sure you've watched some of his footage. Or let me ask you this: do you watch a lot of footage leading up to your fights, or do you prefer just doing it the old-fashioned way?
I watch quite a bit of footage, but I also have my coaches do a lot of they watch a lot of footage for it. They get a lot of game plan for me. I'll watch it just to get like a couple tendencies and just kind of understand who I'm fighting. Add that into my visualization. But really, I just let my coaches do the work for me.
Right. Interesting. Now, when you're, drawing your conclusions about, what kind of a game plan you want to draw up, do you usually draw it up with your coaches, or do you try to implement your own little elements here and there depending on your strengths? Do you try to pick on your opponent's weaknesses, or do you just play to your strengths, even though it's your opponent's weakness as well, strength as well?
My coaches really they set up game plans that work for my strengths. So really focus on what I'm good at, because that's the only thing I can't control. I can't control what he's good at or not good at. So we focus on what I'm good at, what I can do, and what I can control. So really just focus on my strengths in order to win the fight.
Right. Interesting. Now, of course, I don't want you looking ahead of, Matthew as an opponent, but of course, everyone has their main goal to, move up to the ranked fights, and then the top fivers, and then of course the belt. So, as you're going to be taking out, of course, you have some form of an ideal path charted out after this victory, or whether it's a loss, or I'm fairly sure you've considered multiple different variables. So. In an ideal fight plan, let's call it, where do you want to move forward after this fight?
Yeah, I'd like to be top 15 by the end of the year. By the end of 2021, I want to be a top 15 fighter, and that's one of the goals I have for the year.
Right. So you haven't had last year, 2020, you had about two fights over a span of like 4 months, and this was around the latter half of 2020. Now, how many fights do you ideally want to have, depending on the amount of damage you take on this one, and moving forward, how many fights would you ideally like to have this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to stay active. I'd like to fight 3 or 4 times at least, including this one. But that depends. We've had talks of me going to lightweight. We've had talks of me going to 55. So that's more of a bigger weight cut, and so that's going to be less chances of me to fight more often. So it really just depends on what I'm doing after this fight. We're gonna get through Master Simmelsberger. When I take that fight and go to that, and then after that, we'll kind of reassess what I need to do to further my career.
Right. So when you're picking your weight depending on which division you want to fight at, you have a lot of options open for you when it comes to the lightweights or the welterweights. So when you're gonna pick your multiple different fights, do you like picking which weight is easier for you to manage it? I mean, you have the lightweight, you have lightweight open, you have welterweight open. Do you like cutting that amount of weight? Do you like bulking up a little bit? What's your ideal plan there?
Yeah, I really don't want to cut to 55. It's going to be a hard cut. It's not going to be fun. I'm not looking forward to it. But like I said, I'd rather fight at 70, but I'm fighting a lot bigger guys. I'm fighting a lot taller guys. I'm not a big 170er. So really, whatever works best for my career is what I'm going to do. But I don't want to. I don't really want to cut to 55. I don't have to.
Right. And there's a lot of different restrictions that have come about recently in the fight game thanks to COVID, right? Now, of course, we've spoken to multiple different fighters about this, about the different forms of lockdowns. We spoke to Mike Davis recently. He spoke about the restrictions when it came to Fight Island. Now, I want to talk to you about the whole situation in Vegas, fighting at the Apex. Have you had a chance to check out the octagon, the smaller octagon that you're going to be fighting in later this week? And if so, what have you made of the entire situation? Do you think a smaller octagon will help you close the distance better? Or do you like moving around a larger octagon? What's your thoughts on how the event is going to be taking place at the Apex?
Yeah, I mean, I fought twice in the smaller octagon, and I really enjoyed it. I really think it works to my advantage of getting people. I like getting people against the cage and taking them down from there, and that's really having a smaller cage works to my advantage for that. I mean, I haven't fought anywhere else that has a large crowd, so having no crowd and nobody at the arena really kind of is beneficial to me right now. So yeah, I enjoy the smaller octagon. It works out for my benefit, especially this fight, I believe.
Right. And there's a lot of and there's a lot of different COVID. Now, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, the COVID restrictions that were imposed, the bubbles that have been created by the UFC, for the protection of the fighters and the staff, and so on and so forth. Now, when you've been dealing with these COVID restrictions, you've been having the tests, you've been having to maintain certain protocols. You're in your room, I assume now. So what's the entire infrastructure like? How's the whole process been like, getting acclimatized to this newer situation?
Yeah, it's just boring. I mean, you're really just stuck in a hotel room for most of your time. Like we can go to the Apex, we can go to Whole Foods, but there's only so much stuff you can do. We're pretty much just stuck watching Netflix and hanging out, playing chess, just the boring stuff. Really can't do a lot of stuff. In October, we were kind of allowed to go places. We went to the mall, went to quite a few places, but yeah, for right now, they kind of restricted that a lot more. So we're just stuck in this beautiful hotel room.
So what are you watching on Netflix now? I'm sure there's something must be entertaining you now.
Jason High, one of my coaches, had never seen Shutter Island, so we're watching that right now.
Ah, great. It's an amazing show. Do you watch? So, I mean, I've had from all the different fighters I've had on, when I've asked them, what they like, many of them tell me, they watch a lot of anime. Are you into a lot of anime as well? Forgive me for the generalization.
I'm not. I am not one of those people who watches anime at all. I'm a movie buff. I enjoy movies. I'm not really even a television person. TV show. I like movies. That's more my style.
Well, when we're speaking about movies, do you follow a lot of the comic series? Do you watch a lot of Marvel or DC, or are you into a lot more action movies that aren't really very superhero related?
Yeah, I love Marvel movies. I love all the comic book movies. I'm a romantic comedy type guy too. Like I'll watch anything that throw Matthew McConaughey or some shit in that. So I'll probably catch a lot of slack for that. But hey, that's why I'm good at hitting people in the face.
Yeah, well, I mean, you don't want to mess with a guy who can knock your lights out or choke you out, though. So, I mean, whatever works is whatever you're gonna get. So, when we've been, going back and forth, I just realized, there's been quite a lot of time that you've been in this COVID bubble, and it gives a lot of fighters this time to really refocus their skills and help them develop on their game. It's a huge time for multiple fighters to develop the game. So it's something I ask a lot of fighters when they come on is when you're preparing to get out of the bubble and get back into the octagon after a lot of time in lockdown and all these different processes, what is the part of your game that you've been trying to work on the most? Is there any particular area which you feel like improving, whether it be your cardio, your footwork, your boxing, your jiu-jitsu, your wrestling, your kickboxing, your Muay Thai, so on and so forth? What's the main aspect of training that you focused on throughout this coronavirus period?
Yeah, we've worked a lot of footwork. We have quite a few good coaches. If you ever watch James Krause fight, he has phenomenal footwork.
Yeah.
We have Austin Ford, who's a great boxing coach. He's really good at range control and footwork too. So we worked a lot of that. But a lot of my wall work, my my system that I have organized into my game has really leveled up quite a bit in the last couple of months.
Right, interesting. Now let's talk about your division, right? Your divisions, if I may. So you have the options of welterweight and lightweight, and those divisions have been very heated and lit up. To say the least. The very main event of the card coming up this week is Bilal Muhammad and Leon Edwards, a big, huge rank fight. It's probably something that's going to be a title fight contender decider for the future after Kamaru defends his belt again. So when all of these different incidents are going down, when you build your way up with the plan that you've started out, you want your ranked fight by the end of this. Do you think who do you ideally think that by the time you make your way up the ranks and eventually possibly try contending for a title, who do you think you're going to be going after? Do you think Kamaru's still going to be at the throne? Do you think title hands are going to change, or even in the lightweight division, if you think Khabib's going to relinquish the title eventually?
That's a good question. I mean, there's so many variables in this game that you can't ever tell. I mean, so I think Usman's gonna hold his high for that long. He's a great fighter. He's really good. Like I mean, I'm not taking him away from his great champion. I don't think he's gonna hold it for forever. Obviously, I don't think he's gonna have like a George St. Pierre run. I think Khabib's probably done. If I put money on it, I'm probably saying he's done. So there's a lot of options, and by that time, I think the title will change hands so many times that there's no way to tell.
Right. And what let's go back to your fight against Matthew. Right. What is your prediction for how this fight plays out? What is your official prediction? How do you see this fight playing out by which of your game plan?
Yeah, I've said it multiple times. I think TKO round two. I think I'm going to hold him down the first round. It's going to be a tough first round, but second round I'm going to come out and I'm going to do the exact same thing: hold him down, pressure him down, and then just beat him up on the ground and TKO him in the second round.
Interesting. And I mean, hopefully that does work out for you. You heard it here, folks. Second round TKO. And let's have your take on some of the recent events that have taken place in the UFC recently. Of course, you had the huge triple title header last week. You had Nunes with her first round finish. You had the very controversial decision with that between Aljo and Jan. You had Jan showing up and taking the O out of Israel Adesanya. So let's start with the Aljamain Sterling Peter Yan fight. What did you make of the illegal knee? What did you make of the whole fight? And then suddenly when that happened, what did you make of that entire situation? I'm sure that that's something that as a fighter you'd have to be worried about, because you don't want to be getting disqualified for something of sorts and having to deal with that level of that sort of issue facing forward. Do you think that Aljamain is the legitimate champion now, or do you think that the DQ shouldn't strip the belt off of Jan? What's your take on it?
Yeah, so I've actually had that whole incident happen to me before. I fought Isaac Valley Flag in Titan and got illegally kneed in the third round. I was winning the whole fight in that case, and won just by the judges' scorecards, no matter what. But hey, man, look, it sucks how it happened. Nobody wants to win by that, but Aljamain Sterling, he has a belt. He got championship pay. His next fight is for the championship. Like it is what it is. Like looking down the road, years from now, nobody's gonna say, "Hey, he wasn't a champion." Like it, there's no comment box next to the win section. Like no matter how he got it, he's a champion. Unfortunately, that's what happened. The next fight is obviously the rematch, and so that'll really kind of tell, if he's gonna stay champion or not. But it sucks, and that's really just how it happened.
Right. And the interesting part about this is, when it comes to dealing with, the championship pay and the pay-per-view points that you're making out of some of these cards, right? I'm sure you have a lot of understanding about how this area works, right? So when something like this happens to a fighter and like Peter Yan, he doesn't have the belt anymore, he won't be receiving the same amount of pay as he did if he was the champion. So when these variables are being considered in the octagon and the whole lead up to this decision being made by the doctors, and it's also something Aljamain may have thought of when he was on the ground. Whether he was acting or not is up to a lot of speculation by different media outlets and different analysts. But when you were looking at the entire situation, do you think that Aljamain did deserve to get the belt, or whether the fight should have been called a no contest and Jan should retain the belt? Uh, or what do you think that Aljamain, as it stands, should be holding the belt now?
Yeah, that's it's really not for me to say. You know what I mean? Like I'm not the doctor. I'm not the referee. I'm not Aljamain Sterling. So I mean, I can't really say, like I can't say he was faking it because only he knows that. Only he knows if that was the real issue. He has to live with that every day if that's the case. With the doctors, I think, if you can't get over for that certain amount of time, they should have stopped the fight. Yeah, that's the way it is. In terms of no contest, I don't know. I don't know how that works. Fortunately for us, they're going to run it back, and I think it'll be a different fight, and we'll definitely know who wins.
Right. That's the number of fights coming up in the lighter divisions. Some huge fights coming up. Figueiredo and Moreno. Probably the setup to the Aljamain Sterling fight. TJ Dillashaw coming back. It's a huge set of big fights coming up this year. However, I want to come roll over back to talking to you about certain aspects of certain certain other aspects that aren't really seen in front of the cameras when fighters come out for the fight. Right? Of course, there's things like you picking your walkout music. The referee giving you your instructions in the back room. Being called out for your walkout. The whole process of walking in there, the nerves, the bright lights. Having a Bruce call out your name. So can you give me a little bit of insight into how those 24 hours leading up to the fight and is going to be like the weight cut process, where your mind's at? Could you give me a little insight into how that entire process works? Take as much time as you want.
Yeah, man, weight cut starts tonight. I'm not a big welterweight, so it's not cutting huge amounts of weight. That starts tonight. Just sit in a bathtub for as long as I can till I feel comfortable with the weight I'm at. Wake up tomorrow morning. We'll cut the rest of it. Probably wake up about 7 a.m. Cut the rest of that, and then it's just hanging out for the rest of the day until we have actual media actual weigh-ins. there's a lot of tension when you walk up that. It's the first time you actually see your opponent face to face, and there's a lot of emotion in that. But at the same time, there's no reason to get overly emotional or put anything past put anything more into that than there needs to be. It's just kind of just sizing up your opponent, kind of knowing who you're facing the next day, and then just going back and eating as much food as you possibly can to make sure you're rehydrated and refed the whole day. Yeah, I mean, as far as the day of, we're super relaxed, just hanging out. Normally eat a big breakfast, enjoy myself, and I think I'm fighting pretty soon. I'm the first one on the card for this
Yeah.
fight, so that's that'll be a quick night for me. Yeah, warming up. I like to get a good warm up, man. I like to get a good sweat. I'm using my round two is always my best round, and so I like to be sweating quite a bit and walking out. And last fight when I fought Cole Williams, I was pretty nervous in the back room, and I really wasn't too confident walking out. And then once I walked out and got in the cage, man, something switched. And I've never had that actually happen to me. Like it actually flipped a switch in the cage, and I remember telling my coach like I'm a fucking savage, and I remember being in that moment and just knowing like no matter what happens, I'm winning this fight, and you can obviously see the outcome of that.
Right. Interesting, because that's another element I want to talk about. But before I do, I want to harp on something you said a little before, eating as much as you can. Now, do you like just going after some pizzas and burgers just instantly after, or do you eat healthy and stay easy before the fight, stay healthy? What's your ideal diet plan like that?
Yeah, man, I'm super healthy. I like a lot of sushi. I like to eat clean food. I'm never pizza and burgers and nothing like that because I'm not used to eating that stuff, and that really is gonna bog me down and make me feel like shit for the fight. And that's not something I need right now. So I need optimal health. I need optimal fitness in terms of going into the fight, and sushi's always helped that. It's kind of been always my go-to. Eat as much of that as I can just to put some calories on.
Interesting. And how about after the fight? I'm sure you indulge in a little bit of high carbs after.
Yeah, man. We got a place in Kansas City, Missouri called Minsky's Pizza. It's my shit. We used to live next door to it, so it was always fun just to order that. That was always kind of the post fight celebration. So yeah, I mean, I enjoy myself after the fight, but once fight time comes, that's when it's back to normal.
Right? Bon appetit for when that victory comes in, and so does the pizza. And yeah, and in the whole lead up to this fight and your lead ups to the other fights, you've talked about that how that switch flips when you're in the octagon, and you suddenly have this huge level of adrenaline, I assume, pumping through you. You're hyped, you're ready for it. But when being a veteran, I'm sure you've been through this process before. When you have your opponent in a very vulnerable position wherein you can either knock his lights out or choke him out, and there's that fine line between where you're in control and where you're too amped up that you made a silly mistake and you got through because of your own nerves being too high, you got too pumped up and you made a silly mistake, or having that. I'm sure you faced some of those close calls over there, and when you have that adrenaline pumping through you, where you realize that you have to go, yeah, you can go for the finish now. How do you keep yourself in check? Is there any way you like reset and tell yourself that you want to stay calm and pick them apart like you always do? What's that whole process like?
Yeah, man, that's just years of experience. That's cage experience. That's fight IQ. That's knowing when to step on the gas pedal and when not to. So I mean that always presents itself. It's not one of those things. I'm never looking for the finish. I'm never. I mean, I always want the finish. I'm always going to get it when it's there, when it presents itself. But if I try to focus on just being calm and collected in there, and that usually helps me out a lot. And then once that TKO or once that submission presents itself, then my instincts kick in. I've done it 1,000 times, so I know what to do from there.
Right, interesting. And uh, you know, uh, there's a lot of different elements of training camps and lead ups to fights. When you're training for fight camp, of course, I'm sure you have a lot of different guys helping you out in the gym. There's a lot of your coaches, and when you're accrediting some of the different skills and experiences that you've picked up over your years in the game. Is there anyone in particular, a training partner who's pushed you hard, or a coach that's helped you incredibly that you credit a lot of this success to?
And there's been too many people. I'm very fortunate to have the number of people I do in my life. I mean, from James Krause to Grant Dawson to Bill Brown, one of my first coaches, to Jason High, who's been one of my coaches for many years. There's been a plethora of people that I'm very fortunate enough to work with, and the list goes on and on.
Right. Great. Now, talk to me a little bit about how you got into MMA, right? Of course, everyone just starts out as a quick fan. And how did you discover mixed martial arts? How did you get interested and fall in love with this sport? And, eventually, step by step, decide that, I want to train this place. Who were the few fighters that you looked up to? What were the few fights that really caught your attention that helped you decide that I want to get into this sport?
Yeah, I wasn't really a fan. I honestly didn't watch much fighting or anything. I've always been super competitive and always loved like competing. And I got sent to a gym, just recommended like, hey, go try this out, and ended up trying it out and loved it. And I lost my first fight, and after that, man, it was just I just kept training harder and harder. So I always idolized George St. Pierre. He's always been like my favorite fighter. So I always kind of idolized his career as much as possible. So I'd give a lot of inspiration to George St. Pierre.
Right. And finally concluding, let's have we have your prediction for your fight. But how about your pick for this fight, your the main event of this card coming up, Bilal Muhammad, Leon Edwards. What's your prediction for how that fight plays out?
Yeah, man, it's a good fight. It's Bilal Muhammad looked great in his last fight. A lot of pressure, a lot of power strikes. I looked great. I think Leon Edwards is going to take this one now. I think he's just a little more experienced and longer, and looks really good.
Right. That's great. And you know what? Thank you very much for joining in, Jason. It was a pleasure having you on. It was amazing listening to you talk about your different experiences in the fight game. And finally, before I wrap it up, there's two last things I like doing. Is first I wanna if there's one or two everyone has those one or two experiences or highlights in their careers that they hold very dearly to their hearts. So whether it be, one of your fights or something that's happened in training camp that helped you shape up, what was one of the most interesting stories or incidents that have happened to you that, if you want to share it, feel free to, about, sometime in your fight career.
Yeah, man, I took a fight on 3 weeks' notice at a lower weight class against a guy in Canada who was supposed to be like the number one prospect in Canada. Uh, he had twice as many fights as I did. He was super good, great jiu-jitsu. I was super nervous for it. Went up to Canada, never been out of the country before, never flown, never fought out of the country, any of that stuff. Uh, and I went out and knocked him out in a minute. And that was just one of those like, man, that was one of the best trips I ever had.
Which fight was this?
I fought Ryan Dixon.
Ah, right, right, right. Interesting. And yeah, that must have been quite a pumped up feeling that you had if you finished them that quick. I mean, it, so when you were leading up to this situation, I mean, you did say that you were very nervous. So, have you? There's a lot of different areas leading up to the fight that builds up people's nerves. Like shit talk, or the face offs, the little nerves behind that. So is there any particular part about those lead ups that gets you riled up more?
No, man, I'm usually pretty calm and confident going into stuff. I mean, you have nerves, and if you don't have nerves, then you don't care about what you're doing. Nerves are just part of the process, just something you got to deal with. They're never going to go away, no matter how many fights you have, no matter what happens. It's just we're both feeling the exact same thing. I mean, that's the beauty of the sport. There's a minimal margin of error, and so it's just coming out who's better on that day.
All right, great. And finally, to wrap it up, best of luck. Best of luck for your fight coming up. I really hope that second round TKO plays out. I mean, first round TKO, nothing, none the wiser. But yeah, hopefully
The
you can enjoy your pizza right after. I'll be rooting for you. I'm sure our viewers here will be rooting for you. Thank you very much, Vanilla Gorilla. Once again, a brilliant nickname indeed. Now, before we close, if there's anything else you'd like to say, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out, anything else you want to say, feel free to go ahead.
No, man, I just appreciate you having me on. Thanks for the time.
Right. And once again, I really apologize for the mix-up we had before. To the viewers who don't
It's
know
all
what
good.
happened, I mistook Jason's name for another guy by on mistake because of their nicknames of Vanilla Gorilla. But if there's one Vanilla Gorilla who's gonna be shining, I'm telling you, it's gonna be Jason Witt. Once again, Jason, thank you for joining in. Thank you all. Thank you all for watching. That's what that was, and we'll see you on the next one.